Ooh, dang it all. Oh, man.
Honestly, that like worship song you were singing earlier reminded me a lot of the song that we're singing, but I felt like inappropriate, like transposing that one on top of it. It's just like, oh, that's bad.
Is that bad?
And according to my calculations,
Yes.
should be on the live stream. Hi, everybody. All the cameras. Hi, everybody.
Look at all the things.
What's that? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Man.
There's so many things that I have in reserve for, I'm like, ooh, add that to my favorites, because one day when I have money, I'll buy it. Now I'm like, yee. All the things I could buy.
Oh, is that Etsy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have that too. Every once in a while, I'll go and look at like all my favorites on Etsy, and I'm just like, this is a bad idea.
This is bad.
Especially like if I'm looking for a gift for someone else, because then I'm like, but I want it.
Look, my budget, like our budget for gift giving is 3 times the amount I put for cakes. That's where I'm at. This is this is the struggle of gift giving. So I'm like, you get a gift, but I can't just give you like a gift. I need you to give you like a real, I've thought about this, and you'll carry it with you for the rest of your life gift.
That's partly because you're a gift giver.
Yeah.
You put too much stock into your gift
I
giving.
do. I made friends with the lady at the jewelry store already. Like, you're all getting, diamond earrings. Not really, but
I have never received diamond earrings. Thank you.
I'm going in there and I'm like, okay, this is my budget. And she's like, okay, go to Target.
Wait, what?
Like, we don't have anything here for that.
All right. Got the feed happening here. Good. All right. Okay. Here we are.
I will share now.
Golly. I've got to get some new glasses.
I just ordered some because this little part down here,
Yeah.
just like split.
Oh, yeah, that does happen.
So I ordered some new ones the other day from Zenni Optical, I think.
I think that the oil in my face is beginning to disintegrate the plastic. Is that normal?
That's some strong stuff there, that oil.
Okay.
I used to wear.
Is that normal, or am I an X-Men and don't know it?
I used to wear metal ones that would touch my cheeks right here,
Yeah.
and they'd get all green, and like
Yeah.
that's where I had like all these like.
Your natural copper deposits are located there.
Yeah. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I usually try to, moisturize my face and everything, Not in a weird way, but just a normal
No,
way.
what?
Yeah.
I use Nivea.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The men version of
I
that.
thought if I grew my hair out, usually when I grow my hair out, it makes my face look thin. Not tonight.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh. I'm not worried about it. I'm not like, oh my gosh, I'm just like, oh.
Oh, I need to get
Maybe
set up to
if I don't slouch.
Normally, my haircut is on Spy Wednesday, but because of a scheduling error, and I forgot, it was last week. So,
So now the beard stays.
well, I mean, at least through Spy Wednesday.
Ha. So this will be our plan in the future. Just cancel your appointment
Yeah.
with Mr. Banano.
But what?
What?
It was something with a B.
Yes, Bonanno.
Banano.
Yeah. Well, they get used to seeing me monthly, so I'll go in every month and, just.
Every month.
Mhm.
Y'all want to know something? I have not had a haircut since February of 2020.
I believe it.
Nice.
Hey,
No, I mean
say
your
that.
hair is always long. I'm not saying.
I
that you-
believe it.
I'm not
I
saying.
believe it.
I'm not saying that you
It
look like.
looks terrible.
Yowza.
I'm not saying that you look like some sort of Neanderthal woman, or I'm not saying that at all.
That is not the thing to say. That's not what you wanted to say. This is just like the time when I asked, does my forehead look shiny? And you said yes.
Well, I thought you
Proof
wanted
that you
honesty.
don't
I
have
didn't.
sisters.
No, I don't. I don't. Yeah. I don't know. What can you do? I spend most of my time in the doghouse anyway, so. That's why priests age in dog years, I think.
So
partially.
rude.
You do.
So rude.
Rude.
All right.
Ooh, zit. Somebody's blowing up.
Oh, yeah. I think Michael Kraus wants us to say hello to him, so should we give he and his kids a selfie of some sort? Let's
Yeah.
see. Oh, wait. I got to turn the camera around. I'm not really old
Right.
now.
I was gonna say, what an old man.
I gotta lean in. All right.
So cute.
Oh, precious.
Golly, this is what we're responding to. So Michael and I went to the seminary together, and now he has, more kids than.
Aw, they're cute.
Wow.
Michael, your kids are getting older. How?
Look at that little one. I love him so much.
My goodness.
Oh, I know.
feel very old now just seeing the age of his kids. But that's about right. I mean,
You are old.
I am old now.
That is true.
I am a ghost now.
An old man.
Coughing up dust over there. Thanks, Ed.
The state of my lungs is actually appropriate for my age. I'm a non-smoker. Thank you. All right.
I like when I can hear commentary from the peanut gallery.
Yeah.
Makes me feel like some kind of comedic genius.
You don't have to be up in space for your voice to be heard so well down here. Okay. So about 7 minutes to showtime. Hoping that my computer here, my iPad, doesn't go to sleep. It's been falling asleep of late. Well, right in the middle of me talking, just the show notes go away. All right. I wonder if there's a way to.
There was a lady this weekend who, I see every time I go to this particular conference. And 2 years ago when I met her, she was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And she had her baby last year.
Yep.
And this year I saw her again. I'm like, hey, how are you? Blah, blah. She's like, good. She said, we're pregnant. And I was like, great. Oh my gosh. How many? And she's like, 12. And I was like,
12. Like,
wow.
one for
That
each
is
apostle.
That is awesome. That is, and I've only known her for a few years, so but I was like, I didn't realize that. Wow.
I think that's beautiful. I really do.
I absolutely
I mean,
think it is.
And it takes a great deal of courage
Yeah.
today to have
Oh yeah.
just a whole mess of kids.
Yeah, I was like, but I was thinking about, I was like, man, how fun that house has to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Where you learn how
Chaotic and fun.
We've been kind of picking on you for being the only child, but like how the lessons you learn of like patience and sharing and because you have to.
Yeah, no, I might as well have been a librarian. I had a pretty boring upbringing. I mean, in that sense,
Yeah.
I had fun. I had a lot of friends. And,
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And certainly going to the seminary, you gain about 80 brothers. But,
Yeah.
But yeah, I did. My home life was very subdued.
Yeah.
But that said, I remember pretty much all the way through from elementary school all the way through high school, having regular like friends sleeping over and things
Yeah.
like that. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, 5 minutes and counting. Looks like we're about 20 seconds behind on the stream here. Presumably. But that's okay, because if you still chime in during the chat, then there's a chance that what you say will end up on the program. And actually, I have a plug-in to put that up on the screen. I just haven't activated it yet.
Oh, that's cool.
I need to do that.
Zinger.
Although
like,
there's
but-
not a worry that Father Chris will like misrepresent what you're saying.
No, I usually just read it.
Yeah. He's very good about that.
Sometimes I'll...
And Kathleen, I never have the chat open. That's my fault.
It's also why I never have any battery left in my phone, because the easiest way is just to have it,
Yeah.
hanging
Well,
out
I
here.
don't get like the whole chat.
Oh, yeah? Maybe I
just
don't
forget
either.
to even have it open. 7 years, you think I'd learn, but I'm just like, oh yeah, that should be open. It's just not.
Well, someday I'd like to have it on a screen in front of us so that we can look over and see it, because I know that I can activate that.
Oh, that'd be cool.
I don't know if I can do it where the type will be large enough. I'd like to put something in the desk here.
Oh, like the newscasters.
Mm-hmm.
That would be fun.
Yeah, I need to call Nick in and do that. I'd like to redo the desk here.
Yeah.
That's the grand plan.
Yes, you've been talking about it for a while.
I need a larger studio. Just saying.
Just blow out that wall.
Actually, if we do what I like to do, then we can go all the way back to the wall, because there is a little space back there. But that's usually when Ed begins to cringe a little bit, saying, "What does he want? What does he want to do?" Yeah, he
just
says,
got the lights on. I like them.
You know, I spent 3
Ed
years.
just said no.
You know, I just spent 3 years wiring this whole place and putting everything in, perfect place. Yeah. Tear it all down, Ed. It's all coming down.
he just gives you a time. Yeah.
It's like, shut up. 3 minutes.
Right.
Shut up.
right.
No more dreaming.
That's right. That's right. When Father Chris dreams, it costs us at least $20,000. No, at least I don't. Not yet. No. I usually try to pinch the pennies.
Yeah, you dream in budgets.
I try to dream in budget.
Yeah. It's okay. It's just that we keep growing, and our little racks over here are full, and the places that we had to run wiring have now all filled up. So
They have. I've had to make the little hole here to pass the cables in between the Jeff Star one and here, larger.
I'm tethered to you, Father.
That's right. Jeff Blackwell, space elevator. Hello, Taylor. Long time no see.
My goodness, Taylor.
Yeah.
Look at you.
Ugh. I had a good nap today,
Yeah.
post-mass, post-misam napibus. But it's one of those where I'm still kind of yawning
Oh
afterwards.
gosh, I had.
Altogether good nap, though.
Yeah.
And it was not a pontifical high nap, but it was definitely a solemn high
Yeah.
at the Falls stool. All right, let's go ahead and pray real quick here.
Okay.
In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Almighty God, we give you thanks as we go on the air tonight. We ask that you would help us to say the things that men need to hear for the sake of their salvation, and that you would allow us to refrain from saying those things that do not have that aim. We ask that you would be especially close to any who are suffering or carrying the cross in a very real way tonight, and that you also would minister to them with your holy angels. We ask that you would protect all of our equipment from the deadly attack of the enemy, and through the intercession of St. Michael, you would watch over us this day. We make this prayer and trust through Jesus Christ, our King and Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Alrighty, gang. Well, we got about 30 seconds, so stay right where you are, and the show will start at the top of the hour.
Feel like family. Always in budget, Brian Larsh and the family at Riverland Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram in LaPlace would love seeing you. Riverland Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram of LaPlace is a proud underwriter of Catholic Community Radio.
WQNO 690 AM New Orleans. WPYR LP FM 105.9 Baton Rouge. WPYR 1380 AM Baton Rouge.
This episode, Sacred Music at Sacred Times. The Catholic Underground starts right now. You have indeed hit the play button on the Catholic Underground. We are a podcast cutting through the noise and bringing you the topics that matter into your podcastomatron. It's episode number 441 for those of you who are keeping score on your official Catholic Underground scorecard and bingo card. Yep. I'm Father Chris Decker, a priest of the Diocese of Baton Rouge in Louisiana. Joining me, we have Kathleen Lee. Kathleen Lee, she's just herself. She's a teacher.
I am many things.
She is many things.
Yep.
Yeah, you're a retreat leader.
I am here.
She is here.
Where I am.
Yeah. Also here, presently breathing, Olivia Galino.
That's true. I am breathing. I love how Kathleen gets all this list of accolades and I don't get breathing. But okay.
She takes up air.
Olivia converting oxygen into carbon dioxide so that we all can live. And then up on the Jeff Star 1 near Earth orbit satellite, spinning its way merrily through space, Jeff Blackwell.
Good to be here, Father.
Yeah, glad to have you as always. And in the ball pit, we have Ed Ball. That's really his last name. He is not spherical.
No.
He's more of a cylinder.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he didn't go to Ball State, but he wears a shirt that says that.
Oh.
Remember
well.
taking a picture of him outside the city limits of Ball, Louisiana. Yeah.
I didn't even know we had that.
Absolutely,
there you go.
outside of Alexandria, right in the heart of Louisiana.
That's right.
So anyway.
Yeah, if you're from Ball, I've driven past there. So we thought that following along with the themes of the last few episodes, we talked about sacred time.
Right.
And the calendar of the church year, etc. We talked about sacred places, whether that's your little prayer nook in your home or the grand cathedral in Cologne, Germany, or perhaps St. Peter's Basilica. And so we're kind of continuing that theme a little bit, especially during what for us is the season of Lent, talking about sacred song, sacred music, because these are all different expressions of how, speaking of converting oxygen into carbon dioxide, these are all ways in which we as Christians breathe. We breathe in the midst of the way that we take in and experience sacred time. We breathe spiritually the way that we worship in certain places. But we also spiritually breathe in the way that we express our worship in song. Yeah. And so we thought we'd cover that. So
isn't it interesting though how one of the things to go during this pandemic, because we can't be unmasked, is not only have we not been able to gather in church, but when we have been able to, one of the things missing is like choral music and choirs and even sometimes music at all. And that's been something that when you go back to Mass, you're like, oh man, like there's just something different, something, besides the fact that we're all 40 feet apart and we're all wearing masks and we're hand sanitizing and, all this kinds of stuff, that's part of the liturgy that you're like, it's just interesting. It's just interesting.
It's something that is not foreign to us,
right?
And when it's missing, we immediately notice it,
right?
So we thought maybe we talk first of all about what it means to be sacred, because we've kind of covered that a little bit, at least in shadow. But to talk about specifically what it means to be sacred, because when you start talking about music, especially in church, all of a sudden you start experiencing a hook and loop Velcro effect. You start kind of rubbing things the wrong way. So we thought we'd talk about what it is to call something sacred.
Yeah. So, I mean, the word, it comes down to us through, it first originates in Hebrew, right? Kadosh, which just means to be set apart, right? Yeah. So like if you ever, in a theology class or in RCIA or something, you probably encountered that meaning, or maybe even like consecrated. But that's really just what consecrated means. It means it's something that
specifically
has been set apart for a specific purpose. But that purpose being a holy one.
Right.
And so when something is sacred, it means that it has been dedicated for a use that is only to be that it's only for God. Right. Like this is a holy thing, not holy by virtue of what it is. Right. by virtue of what it does or what it will do.
Yeah.
Right. And so like think of the nation of Israel, right? So like in the Old Testament, they are kadosh, right? They are set apart.
Of all the nations, they are set apart.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it is not because they themselves are like the bee's knees, they are holy, right? They mess up constantly.
Yeah.
It's really annoying and nauseating. But they
To
are
them.
set apart, yes.
Yeah.
And to us who like study them and read them and love them and find and identify ourselves with them.
That's right, exactly. I am very much
Yes.
Israel. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you look at them and they are still kadosh. They are still set apart for God because it is through them that the rest of the world is consecrated
Yeah.
to God,
Yeah.
right? They are like the holy vessels that God makes his covenant, that God will consecrate the rest of the world, that God will make a sacrament of the rest of the world. Right?
It's interesting that there's this notion. I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, but that those whom God chooses, he qualifies for that which he has chosen them. You know, and he says that even in the Old Testament. He says, you know, you will be my people, and I will be your God. I'm going to make of you a nation, a kingdom of priests.
Yeah.
I'm going to make of you those who others will look to and say, this is where we should go.
Yeah.
Because these are the people the Lord has chosen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even in when God's making his covenant with David, right? I think it's 2 Samuel 7. David goes to God, right? And he recognizes, you know, the Ark of the Covenant is in the city, and he sees, you know, that he's in this grand palace, but that the Ark of the Covenant is just in
a tent.
in this meager dwelling that it's been in for, you know,
Yeah.
decades now. And he says to God in prayer, you know, I want to build you a house, right? A bet.
I'm living in a
And-
house of cedar, and you dwell in a tent.
Exactly.
I want to make a home for you.
Exactly. And God kind of one-ups him or levels up his request.
Oh, you
and
will build a
says-
house for me?
Yeah. And he says,
Yeah.
I'm going to build a house out of you.
Out of you.
And what
Yeah.
he means there is like a royal house, a dynasty, a lineage. And that's what God does, right? He takes our offerings, our meager gifts, and he just explodes them. He makes them so much more than we ever could because of this notion, what we're talking about, of that things can be set apart for what for divine purposes, right? If only we will give them over to God, right? That's the key part. If we set things apart because we want to like preserve them, hoard them for our own use,
Or amplify ourselves for our
Yeah.
own benefit.
right? Well, then that's selfishness. That's navel gazing,
Yeah.
and that gets them in more trouble than they ever imagined possible, right? Old Testament, New Testament, modern day, every day.
Yep.
You see that myriad examples. But when we set things apart and we give them over to God, we say, this is your territory. Do with it what you want. Then God can truly enter in and work. And that's when you have this amazing transformation. That's when you have the literal Eucharist.
Yeah.
That's when that kind of transubstantiation can occur.
When he can take something that is simple, us, right? We are fragile creatures, and yet he can do supernatural things in us and through us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, that's proven in Christ, his Son, who, though God, takes on flesh, you know, for our sake. What a beautiful thing. So when we talk about sacred, that is the place that we're coming from, and we certainly talk about the use of sacred music. It doesn't just come out of nowhere, but it's actually thousands of years old. So if you think about, certainly historically speaking, all of the many different cultures that worshipped pagan gods, they had their own musical traditions, you know, and some of those things still kind of hang out today. We can archaeologically find those, but within the history of the people of Israel, there is certainly preserved within the scriptures this notion of sacred song. Of course, it's all written down, but like if you look at any of the Psalms of David, then you certainly understand that because they're written poetically, they were meant, and they were at one point in David's own time set to music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They even wonder, biblical scholars wonder if like some of the notes in the margins, like if you look at a Bible in the margins, it might have like in italics the word like Selah,
Cough.
or Kof or something like that. They wonder like if some of those words were like musical notations or like an indication.
setting.
Yeah, an indication to someone who was performing this or singing this or playing the accompanying or something like that. An indication to them about something that they ought to do.
Yeah,
Right.
because Selah means to pause.
Yeah.
Like a holy pause. I have a friend who named her daughter that.
Oh yeah,
That
wait.
was beautiful.
The
Oberdorfs, yeah.
Yeah.
They're in. Yes, but
I'll be over here.
It was a beautiful thing. She was telling me about it. She's like, yeah, in the Psalms there is this word Selah, and it's just it means to pause. And I was like, oh, that's so beautiful. Like it's a beautiful reminder as you're reading through Scripture, and especially the Psalms, to stop. Because I think oftentimes I'll read through Scripture and I'm like, right? And you get down to the end, I'm like, I have no idea what just happened, but that there was a rhythm,
Right?
That there's a rhythm to the way that this should be read,
Right, and that's preserved. If you've ever been to a synagogue service for our Jewish brothers and sisters, if you've ever been to the synagogue, then you'll see some of those psalm settings. And I would presume that some of them are indeed, if not thousands, hundreds of years old. And there's a really beautiful sense, as we'll talk about Gregorian chant in a little while, that even some of those psalm tones that we use today are themselves based on some of the ancient tones that would have been used to chant the psalms originally. And so I'm thinking of one of the Psalms, Psalm 95, that is very much concerned. So before you even get to the 100th Psalm, within the first 95 Psalms, there are several notions of singing. And so Psalm 95 is, "Come, let us sing joyfully to the Lord, cry out to the rock of our salvation. Let us come before him with a song of praise, joyfully sing out our psalms. For the Lord is the great God, the great King over all gods, whose hands hold the depths of the earth, who owns the tops of the mountains. The sea and the dry land belong to God, who made them, formed them by hand." So even in the midst of the Psalms, as you move towards Psalm 100, which is actually the psalm in a procession, right? Something that's being sung in a procession to the temple. This notion of singing to the Lord is very near and dear, not only to the heart of Israel, but also to us. We who kind of come in the spiritual progeny of Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah, we also note that as we come into through the centuries, the church has always understood that very important and real role of preserving psalmody. Just as David, King David in the Old Testament, realized that we need some form of way to cry out to God as we go to worship him in the temple, this has also been part of Christian life as well. We know that the apostles would be found in the temple several times daily, reciting the Psalms along with the people. That's something to meditate upon if you haven't, is that the Psalms that we say, the 150 that we've got, right, that was being chanted by Peter, by Andrew, by all of the apostles at the times that they went to pray. And I'll do you one more. The Psalms of the church today that are officially prayed in the Liturgy of the Hours, we're supposed to pray them at the hours that they would have been praying them in the temple. And so the church even preserves that today. So like you're singing in an unbroken line with the apostles, who are, by the way, still singing that in heaven.
I mean, what I love about the Psalms too is like, and I tell this to my girls whenever we talk about prayer, like you really can't do better when you're looking to find a kind of like refreshment for your own prayer than to like turn to the Psalms, because it's
all
basically every human experience, emotion that you could ever think to experience or undergo is there, but it's literally God saying like, this is what I want you to say to me. And it's not all like happy, like God, I love you so much. Thank you. It's like, I want you to yell at me and these are the words. Or like, you're really feeling angry right now at that person, say this.
It's always interesting because if you think about it, the Psalms really are kind of an arc for us. You know, the Lord gave Noah the specifications for the ark. This is how you will preserve your life and the ones who believe in me. He gave his specifications on the building of the Ark of the Covenant. This is what I want built so that you can be sure that I will come and be in your midst. And the Psalms for us are kind of like an ark as well. If you lack the ability to pray, I myself will give you the words to pray. You know, because I'll admit there are times where I lack the ability to pray. And the only thing that can come to my lips is one of the antiphons that I prayed. You know, Friday night prayer ends with, all of my friends you have taken away. My one companion is darkness. What a strange, lamentable psalm to end on Friday night, kind of the psalm of a Good Friday. But sometimes it is those psalms in loneliness. The Lord even gives us those.
Right. Well, I love what you're saying. It's like it gives you permission. Like, you know, we do. And in music, there's a lot of time, you know, we'll talk about this later about, you know, the emotion that it brings up. You know, but when you're looking at the Psalms, there is that, you know, you know, I praise you, God, blah, blah, blah. One of my favorite ones is Psalm 130, and it says, out of the depths I cried for you. And it's like, okay, sometimes I'm just like, all right, Lord, you kind of ticked me off. Like, I'm kind of upset. I'm not talking to you, but I don't want to be too mad because then you're going to then I'm be in trouble. Like, this is saying, look, like, I mean, like, from the highest of highs to the lowest out of the depths, I'm crying for you. You know, and it gives you permission to, you know, like you were saying, Olivia, like, it gives you permission to say this, like, you know, human emotion, God, and you know how I can best express myself. And so here, you are giving me permission to sing your praises when things are awesome and cry out to you with everything that I am when things are not, you know.
And ultimately that's Psalm 27, right? Of you my heart is spoken, seek his face. It is your face, O Lord, I seek. That's what we truly want. We want to see the face of God. And seeking the face of God doesn't just happen whenever we are in a good place. Seeking the face of God is most especially happening where we're in a place of desolation.
Yeah.
And I think that's also where we talk a little bit about the power of music within our worship. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But first, we should remind you that we are the Catholic Underground. You're listening to the Catholic Underground. We are a podcast that attempts to come on the air to give you the things that matter to talk about, to pray about, and to live, too. I'm Father Chris, joined by Kathleen and Olivia. And we've got Jeff up on the Jeff Star 1. I saw you fiddling with some knobs up there, Jeff. It's a good thing. I mean, you know, Jeff Star 1, always under construction. And then Ed as well. We're online all the time at CatholicUnderground.tv, and we are talking this week about sacred music. And we were talking, really, we just kind of dove into the Psalms. Maria in the chat room says, I tell my religious ed classes that the Psalms are love songs to God. That's exactly right. The Lord loves us, that he gives us the words to love him back, you know? And it's only in our pride that say, I don't need God to tell me what words I'm going to use to pray to him. Oh, but we do.
Surprise.
Because even your ability to use language is, spoiler alert, a gift of God. You know?
And sometimes those words are like the words of Jesus from the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me?
Right. And that's a very real, real word. Yeah.
A-okay.
Yep. So we talk about, as we talk about music, we also, especially as we kind of come down through the centuries, listen to what the church has spoken about the appropriateness of music, because especially when we start talking about liturgical worship, not all music at all times is appropriate, you know? The Second Vatican Council, in its document Musicam Sacram, said, by sacred music it's understood that which, being created for the celebration of divine worship, is endowed with a certain holy sincerity of form. A holy sincerity of form. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important. Like, I think it's important to say that this is not this is what one priest or priests prefer.
Right. Because I get that all the time.
It's not a preference thing. And I know, like, you know, I led a youth music ministry for Mass for several years, and it was something that I wrestled with because there were, you know, I had to be taught a lot of lessons about what was appropriate and what wasn't. And it was, you know, a lot of times I mistook it for like, oh, well, that priest just doesn't like that, like, you know, contemporary worship and blah, blah. And it's like, no. It's what is appropriate for the setting that you're in. And so as we go forward and we're talking about that, I know a lot of people kind of feel that way if you know, the church wants, especially when it comes to music for youth, you know, youth choirs and things like that. The youth scare the church. The church is like, we don't want that because it's too loud and crazy. But that's not even the case.
No,
and there's a proper understanding.
And if I can go ahead and go out on a limb here, a number of people, usually of a certain age, will say, Father, if you want the young people back, you need to give them the rock music. To which I will say, where is it working?
Yeah.
Where? There may be a few outliers, but if that's the case, where is it working?
Yeah.
I mean, please tell me, because young people, they are hardwired for a holy sincerity of form. That's the Second Vatican Council's words.
Yeah.
And so whenever we're doing something that sometimes causes our worship within the liturgy to somehow disconnect because some of the contemporary stuff that we're using doesn't quite fit lockstep with the solemnity or the beauty that the liturgy is called to, that calls us out of this world, then it's not about, we're not talking about style here. We're talking about something even deeper, holy sincerity of form. And this is what the church also says in her teaching in the Second Vatican Council. The following come under the title of sacred music. They say, Gregorian chant, sacred polyphony in its various forms, both ancient and modern, sacred music for the organ and other approved instruments, and sacred popular music, be it liturgical or simply religious. So you see, within the wisdom of the church, there is a notion for what it would call simply religious popular music.
Yeah.
But it notes it in a gradation, right? From what is most appropriate in liturgy to something that may not be suitable for it. And so that, I think, you know, we ought not to pander to our congregations, but rather we should bring them up higher, right? Because there are higher forms of liturgical music.
Yeah, and having directed a youth music ministry, I can tell you, like, the majority of people who were at our masses were 50 years and older.
Yeah,
like kids weren't flocking because they were like, why? And we're talking about being set apart. Why would we go to mass and experience the same thing that we're experiencing on our iPads at home in secular music?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, my cousin Tom says too many churches today feel more like you're walking into a nightclub rather than a place of worship. And I think that's the thing. What's supposed to happen whenever we go to church, be it a Catholic church or be it a Baptist church, you know, on Sunday, is we're supposed to be being drawn up into the worship of God. And it's not supposed to be that we're trying to like coax God down to us. We're going to play our music, God, and if you find favor with that, then you can be. That's not the way it's supposed to be. I am always, especially in the liturgical worship of my body, with my voice, I am always going up to you. That's Psalm 100, by the way. Let us go up to Jerusalem, go up to the Lord.
Yeah. Well, and it echoes like what the Mass really is, right? The Mass is, it's heaven touching down to earth, and it's the heavenly liturgy. Like there's not two liturgies taking place. It's, we talked about this when we talked about like the
sacred
parousia
space,
and
sacred time.
Like it's the one heavenly liturgy happening here and now, right? So it's the parousia, the second coming, but just happening on the altar.
That's right.
And so
we're kind of blending, where, if you want to Star Trek, we're phase shifting into the actual moment where we are experiencing the liturgy of the angels.
Yeah.
That's what's supposed to happen. And so if that is actually, you know, if that becomes a rock concert, brothers and sisters, the heavenly liturgy is so much more than a rock concert, you know?
And Revelation even tells us that, like, Revelation it's more than just like, the sky turning red and mountains like cracking into small pebbles and all this stuff. That's just Revelation 6. But like, if you look in the like later parts of Revelation, it'll tell you like what is happening in that heavenly liturgy. And it's like, yes, you have some stringed instruments, whether they're like lyres or more like guitars, I'm not really sure, but it's like the heavenly voices of the angels. There's like the smoke, like the heavy smoke of the incense, which is like the prayers of the saints in God's heavenly throne room. Right. So there's music, but it's largely like the voices of the angels.
Yeah.
Right.
Again, Tom in the chat says worship music should stir us spiritually and not merely emotionally.
Yeah.
And I think that's really when we talk about the holy sincerity of form within music, is that if we're just being stirred emotionally, that's a component of prayer, but it is not the only component of prayer.
Yeah.
And whenever we sing to God, whenever we praise Him, especially in the context of the Mass or an official prayer of the church, an official liturgy of the church, then it is a crying out from our soul, and that's deeper than emotion.
Yeah.
It has to be. It has to be. And so whenever we talk about the appropriateness of music in certain settings, we talk about the pride of place that things like Gregorian chant, that the organ have. And this isn't just by happenstance that the church says this, but it's really time tested.
Yeah.
Even in ancient Israel, the notion of these pipe instruments, right, is something that is well known and well documented. I've always wanted a sackbut.
Excuse me?
Yeah, it's an instrument.
Please define your term.
Okay. Okie dokie. That's
Just
awesome.
say something like that
No,
with
it's
straight
true. I mean,
face.
it's
I know it's true. We
Beautiful
just can't
ancient
say it with a
instrument.
straight
Oh, I
face.
see. Well, anyway.
He can.
Yeah, no, it's like a trombone. I guess we'd call it that. Yeah, it's a kind of
Gotcha.
trombone from the Renaissance era. But anyway,
Oh, of course.
yeah. Sorry, everybody. But at any rate, whenever we talk about the appropriateness of music, we try to emulate, especially in our official worship services, the music that we hope to hear. And we'll talk a little bit about that on the other side of the break too, is that you have Gregorian chant. Well, where does it come from? Why is it there, and what is its place? And why is it that even our secular society, whenever they hear something like Gregorian chant, immediately recognize that it is something that is set apart?
Yeah.
Because it is. But that's the thing. So I feel like it's important for me to say before we go to break too. Again, this is not just like Father Chris's opinion on things.
Yeah.
No,
Right.
this is Mother Church attempting to guide us not just into an emotional experience of God, because eventually that gives way, that fails,
Yeah.
that does not satisfy. But the church gives us a desire to enter into a deeper relationship with the Lord, and we do that through music. So there's more to come. You'll hear more from us and certainly more from Kathleen on the other side of the break. We're the Catholic Underground. Stay right there. We'll be right back. Hail, Holy Queen, of mercy, our life, our sweetness, and our hope. To thee do we cry, poor banished children of Eve. To thee do we send up our sobs, mourning and weeping in this valley of tears. Turn then, most great Advocate, thine eyes of mercy towards us, and after this our exile, show unto us the blessed fruit of thy womb, Jesus. O clement, O loving, O sweet Virgin Mary. Alrighty, that music that you hear
That's a new one.
is our music. It's the Catholic Underground. I am Father Chris Decker, joined by Kathleen Lee, the inimitable Olivia Galino, and Jeff Blackwell up in space. You doing
Yes.
okay up there, Jeff?
Yeah, taking up a lot of space. Oh,
In
It's funny to go around.
In space, no one can hear you diet. That's what they
true.
always say.
Ooh, I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I'm
It's
going to
true.
write that down.
There you go. Yeah, make sure you write it in Sanskrit, because who knows?
I was thinking
Who can
about
read it?
that comic font that you don't
Don't.
like.
Oh,
Never mind.
Sense.
Yeah,
we
Comic
need to
Sans.
talk about sacred
Say it
fonts
again.
for an entire episode.
Is there
That's
such
right.
a thing? Illuminated
Yeah.
text?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then And then, of course, Ed is switching the video for us. So we're talking about sacred music this episode and sacred song. In fact, Adam is one of the music ministers in his parish. And he says, "This is my motto for the music ministry at my parish. The 4th chapter of the document of Sacrosanctum Concilium. The Second Vatican Council stressed the importance of sacred music as, quote, that treasure of inestimable value, unquote, forming a, quote, necessary and integral part of the solemn liturgy." He says, in brief, sacred music must possess holy, beautiful, and universal qualities.
Yeah.
And from that kind of a launch pad, we can talk about those universal qualities that music has.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about St. Gregory the Great in a little bit, but St. Gregory the Great was, of course, partially great because the use of the Psalms within the church was in decline.
Yeah.
And you'll often see him, as you will a little bit later in the show, with a Holy Spirit kind of hovering somewhere around his ear. And so he, just like King David, set the Psalms again to tones, to musical tones, which then spread throughout the entire church that we still are called to use today, because we realize that whenever we go to Mass, we aren't just simply kind of making it up every time as we go along, but we are entering into something that is much bigger than ourselves, something that is universal in quality, right? Mm-hmm. Name Catholic means universal, and one of those universal ways that we express that is by this unity in song.
You know, it's funny. I was just thinking about this. I was, working at a youth conference where we didn't have any projector. Mm-hmm. And so,
oh no,
yeah, what? So there were no lyrics projected, and so all day the worship team is playing these phenomenal songs, and they're beautiful, like worship songs. They're beautiful, and we could talk about that. Like in all of this conversation, this is not to poo-poo on worship songs.
No, I mean I have many compact discs.
Yeah.
Wait, Spotify. I mean Spotify.
Many compact discs.
Wow!
Period.
Oh wow!
Of contemporary Christian music.
Yeah.
And they were beautiful. And like I'm looking at the words, and I know the words, and I'm like, gosh, this is just such a good song. Mm-hmm. Nobody's singing. Mm-hmm. We pull out O Salutaris, everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody.
The O Salutaris, of course, is the hymn that is traditionally sung at the beginning of Eucharistic adoration.
Yeah.
So,
and it's
at the beginning of a holy hour.
It's a chant. Like it
is ye old chant. It's very
beautiful.
Old.
And I'm just
Thomas
putting
Aquinas.
that together, as I'm thinking about, the difference, because, a projector can make or break a worship band. It really can. But
there's a quotable.
But you pull out these sacred chants that people know, and it's they're easy to sing along to. They're you may not even know what the words mean.
Yeah.
But you know how they go.
That's right. And there's something about that too, that the inspired notion of Gregorian chant. It's not because Gregory was this fantastic musician, but because one of the things that he kind of cracked open that had perhaps been forgotten is that there are two types of music that we can encounter, right? Most music that we hear is according to a rhythm that is based upon the human heartbeat.
Yeah.
So if you think about every time signature, 3/4, 4/4, whether it's a waltz or whether it's in common time, it's based upon the human heartbeat in one form or another. It's a variation on that, right?
Yeah.
But whenever we talk about Gregorian chant, the thing that makes it sound so other is that it is based upon its own sense of rhythm.
Yeah.
It is an angelic, if you will, an angelic rhythm. Because it's sing-songy, and it doesn't have exactly a rhythm that we would recognize. It's not based upon the human heart.
Right.
It's based upon something that's higher, right? It's based upon the one whose heart beats always, right?
Yeah.
With love for us. And so whenever we talk about Gregorian chant and those kind of holy pride of place in music, that's why chant, I think, speaks to our heart. And even somebody who perhaps isn't Catholic can recognize something in Gregorian chant, because not just because it's Latin and who sings that anymore, that kind of thing, but because it's a different rhythm. It calls us out of ourselves. It calls us out of our own heartbeat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Tom and Marie are correct. Yeah, whenever you sing, actually, he who sings well prays twice is what St. Augustine said. So,
Oh, that's sad.
but even still, even St. Augustine would note that there is an excellence that we're called
Right.
to whenever we sing. And so again, even if you can't sing, just about everybody can chant.
Yeah.
Did you know that? That even if you can't sing, just about everybody can chant.
That seems legit. I mean,
Yeah. Well, I mean, even, I don't know, I've been at retreats and stuff where, like, for Liturgy of the Hours, like, they'll teach you a very simple chant, like, it's basically 2 tones.
Yeah, we call it
And-
rectitone. It's the same,
Yeah.
basically the same note.
And, I mean, you know, you go to Mass and you figure out very quickly, singing the hymns, who can and cannot sing.
Yeah, sure.
But then Liturgy of the Hours comes and it sounds, you know,
Yeah.
like something fit for the Vatican or
Yeah, it's
like
true.
the Pantheon, like something just beautifully choral, even though it's not,
Yeah.
right? Because there's like the human voice is made to do that,
Yeah.
right? Just that simple kind
We're
of
made
vibration.
to talk in tone because that's
Yeah.
what we do. You know,
Yeah.
some folks like yours truly has a very kind of musical way that we talk, but we all do if you think about it.
Yeah.
You know? And I always go back to the timeless classic My Fair Lady. You know, Rex Harrison couldn't sing, yet you'd never know it because whenever he does the musical bits, he's basically chanting. He's talking in tone.
yeah.
And that was one of the things that in one of his biographies, he was talking about, like, I can't sing worth a darn, but I learned that I could talk in tone. And in fact, Father Ryan Humphreys, our very own bureau chief of Northern Louisiana.
Yes, indeed.
He can't sing. Father will back me up on this. He can't sing, but he can chant. And once he found somebody that was willing to teach him to chant, he learned that he too could talk in tone, you know. And I think that's an important thing too, as well, is that we're all like Tom in the chat, called to make a joyful noise to the Lord. But part of learning how to sing also means learning how to listen too.
Yeah.
Learning what types of music are appropriate
Yeah.
and what types of music move me past my emotions and into a place of contemplation.
Yeah.
Because that's ultimately what music's supposed to do, right? Supposed to lead us there.
Well, and I think that's maybe like part of the, I don't know, like the discernment, if that maybe that is the right word of music,
Sure.
is like, if a piece of music or a song is keeping you in this particular moment, in
Yeah.
this particular place, it's probably not doing its job. If it's keeping you in this particular emotion, even. But if a piece of music is elevating you, if it's taking you to some place that's transcendent and not just like in like a, you know, to some kind of high or whatever, but like if it's helping you to a place of prayer, if it's even like, you know, maybe helping you to experience like, I don't know, a deeper sense of like maybe a painful place in your past that
Yeah.
you don't really want to go to, or just like a deeper experience of God's love that's been hard to experience. Those are things that are like, I would say, more legitimate.
Right. Yeah. Well,
Like-
it means that the music itself is a vehicle for
Yeah.
a deeper dive into where the Lord wants you.
Right.
I know I've been to praise and worship meetings where I've stopped singing
Yeah.
because the Lord has delivered me to a place and He wants me to dwell there with Him for a little while.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's a place of deep comfort, of kind of letting the Lord love on you, you know. Sometimes, and it's been my experience, it's been a place where the Lord has allowed me to revisit something that was difficult in my life, or a place of sadness.
Yeah.
The Lord sometimes leads us through music to a place where He wishes for us to hang upon the cross with His Son.
Yeah.
You know, that's a very real place as well.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes in contemporary worship, we can begin to kind of think that music is only supposed to make me feel comfortable.
Yeah.
But if you listen to what's supposed to be sung, like at Good Friday, as you're going forward to venerate the cross, the reproaches where from the cross, our Lord, using the voice of the Psalms, is basically indicting us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For many, many many Sabbaths, I came and I taught you in the temple, and yet you still turned aside from me. What have I done to you? Answer me. You know, that's not supposed to make us feel comfortable as we're going to the cross.
Yeah.
It's actually supposed to evoke a place of meeting
Yeah.
where we can say, oh Lord, I have been the one.
Yeah.
I have been the one that caused this
Yeah.
for you. And I'm willing to pour myself out to you so that you would have me. You know, that's a prayer. That's where music can catapult us into a place where the Lord dwells.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important to remember that, like, music it's a form of art, right? And art is an expression of beauty. Beauty is one of the transcendentals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Truth, goodness, beauty, and unity. And those are kind of encapsulations of like the divine essence, right? And so like, like beauty is, it's like passion, right? It's like fervor, and like you get caught up in an experience of beauty. Like it's why you can get lost in like a really good album, or you can get lost in like a painting. You can get lost in the beauty of another person, you know, like that moment when you like see someone and it's just like the wind is suddenly rushing their hair and you lose track of time and space. But that's not all that there is to an experience of beauty or of love, right? Because there's also, that's eros, right? But there's also agape, right?
Yep.
And agape is what like purifies our eros. And so if like, the way that I think about it is like, if music like stays in eros, well, then that's where we just stay in the emotion.
Yeah.
And so the purification is like what you're talking about, like the agape. So it is that conviction, right? Because agape is the love that makes demands, right? It's the love that makes sacrifices, even if it's the demand is like, did you do enough, right?
Yeah. Sit here with me in this moment of grief.
Yeah. And that's going to be the hard stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be the moments that we want to look away or that we want to run away.
Right.
Right. And that's the purification. It's painful.
It is.
Right. But that's when like the passion becomes love.
Right. And that is then what makes us desire to lay down our life.
Yeah.
Right. That's because, I mean, if you think about it, right, this is the pornographic culture in which we live. If we remain only in the erotic, then we never arrive at the unitive and the communicative forms of love.
Yeah.
And we can even do that with our music, is we can just have something, I mean, when we use erotic in the most general sense, right?
Yeah.
Where we can stay only in the visceral, only in what we can feel or apprehend with our senses, and never come to the purgative part of that where we are purified in our intentions, and therefore never come to the unitive parts that music, its very nature is supposed to bring out of us, especially if it's sacred music. Sacred music should bring us through eros, through the purgative, and into the unitive.
Yeah.
And it can do that every time we come to Mass, or every time you listen to chant, or I dare say, every time we listen to contemporary Christian music that has as its aim delivering us into the place where God dwells. And I should say that not all Christian music wants to do that today. You have to discern well the music you listen to. And especially, you know, in with thinking with the mind and heart of the church, there are some songs that I've actually had to ask my worship teams and sometimes even choirs to not sing or to amend because it does not properly express what we as Christians believe, and certainly not as Catholics believe, you know?
Yeah, I was having a conversation with some young people this weekend, and they had formed a music ministry, and they were playing for this conference, and we were talking about music, and you know, we were talking about some of the worship songs that I have a great friend, my friend Adam Trufant, who's a musician who, you know, I've played in many music ministries with him, and there are a couple of songs that he, you know, will change the words to, because he's like, that's not.
It's not accurate.
There's one that talks about I'm laying down all my religion, and it was like, okay, you know, like
if we lay down our religion, then we actually don't have worship.
Yeah, you know, and it was great because he changed it to I'm laying down all my inhibitions, and I was like, that I never would have thought of.
That's
but, you know,
a good equivocal rhyme.
Yeah,
right?
and there's another, you know, there's another one, for example, that says, like you fill me with your grace, or you know, you cover me with grace, and we changed it to you fill me with your grace, I think. But you know, just this idea of like even that to those who are music ministers, like we need to be aware of what it is that we are putting, and even if it's so small, if you know the difference, then change it. you know, and nobody ever said you can't, you know, and when people ask like, hey, I heard it this way, that's a great opportunity to be like, yeah, well, actually, this is, you know, but this is what we believe as Catholics, you know, and that's why we changed it, because it is true. You know, it may be something that no one is ever going to notice, but you do.
Yeah,
and
well,
what you say and what you sing is
because
important.
singing is praying twice, whenever we imbibe the things that we sing, and because they have the ability to affect our emotions and we'll come back to them. I mean, song, there's a reason like you learn your multiplications tables with a song. There's a reason that I learned the countries of the world with a song, you know, and I can still sing it to this day, because if I've heard something once, I can't reproduce it. But there's a reason for all this. It's because it hits our emotions first, and it ties directly to our memory. And so if we learn something incorrectly, something catechetical, right? Something that's a core belief, if we learn it incorrectly, we'll bring it back up, and we believe as we live, and we live as we believe. The law of prayer is the law of worship, is the law of life, right? And so that's why it's important to get words right and that sort of thing too. Yeah. These things are very good. Oh, some folks are telling us some of their favorite musicians. Adam says the Dominican Sisters of Mary have a beautiful and spiritual album called Mater Euchariste. The Dominican Sisters of Mary are fantastic. The Hillbilly Thomists are really good too. Good. If you want Dominicans with banjos,
cool.
There they are. That's right. Yeah. So those are just a few. Let's see. I'm trying to scroll through here. Yep.
Also, the Cistercians of some place I can't pronounce in Austria, possibly.
Oh yes, yes.
I'd
have to look it up because I don't. Yeah.
They have a few different albums with some chant, and I'll like play different types of music on days, certain days of like when my students are praying.
Sure.
Like personal prayer, only certain days though, but sometimes I'll play chant, and that's one of the ones I'll gravitate towards because it's very like
prayerful. I found that
that's a Heiligenkreuz.
Yeah,
that place.
We'll try to remember to put these in the show notes.
Yeah, because that's unpronounceable and unspellable.
Yeah, one time, we were talking about Gregorian chant, and I played some for my 8th graders, and I was surprised. The next day, they're like, "Hey, can you put on some of that?" And I was like, Gregorian chant, and they were like, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And so I put it on while they worked, and they were like, I mean, it was almost like a
They dig it.
They were just like, and it calmed them, and it was like, okay.
And they like they like the Lauren Daigle, and they like the stuff that they recognize, but they always, without fail, will be like, what was that? What was that ghost music?
Yeah.
Like I literally had a girl ask me that one time, what was that ghost music? And I was like, well, it's not ghost music, but it's called chant. But here's what it is. And
the people who sang it might probably be dead, but they're not ghosts.
Yeah. But
probably dead, but not ghosts. Yeah.
But they're curious about it. Yeah.
And I love when you can like that whole idea, ever ancient, ever new. Like it's ancient. That stuff is old school.
Oh yeah.
But young people gravitate towards it. Why? Because it's set apart. It's different. But then in the same vein, there are musicians, and we've spoken about them on the show, throughout the years. There are musicians who are Catholic musicians. Now, the caveat is that a lot of artists who start as Catholic artists, and they put out phenomenal stuff where you're like, duh, dang, I didn't even know he could rhyme that. Like that transubstantiation, he put that in a song. Yep. Here's looking at you, Matt Marr. But like, oftentimes because of their audience, they become more generally Christian. So you don't have a lot of worship artists who are putting out specifically Catholic music for a very long time.
Right.
But there are some out there. Matt Marr is Catholic. He was highly involved at a Catholic parish in I think Arizona. Life Teen, all of that, and some of his early stuff, and even some of his stuff now is very Catholic, very, very Catholic. We've talked about the Vigil Project at length on the show. They are phenomenal. And not only are they putting out Catholic music, but they're putting out Catholic music that has to go with liturgical seasons, which is a phenomenal way. They are one of those that they're artists, but they're also ministers to their very core.
Yeah.
Their whole purpose, because I know the majority of people in that group is to help people worship.
Yeah.
You know, in a very Catholic way. Locally here we have Rita West, who's a Catholic artist, and some of her stuff is all of her stuff.
Locally in Louisiana.
Yeah, locally
Yeah.
in Louisiana. Sorry. Phenomenal. And so, you know, those are some that, you know, give you more of a worship feel. You know, if you love Gregorian chant, you want to put that on, great. But some days I'm just like, I need some pep in my step.
Yeah,
And
me too.
these are some of those artists that we can look to, to kind of not fill that need, but, you know,
Yeah.
give us that feel of, okay.
One of my, of course, Jars of Clay probably is my all-time favorite group. They broke through into the mainstream in the 90s. I think that was the first Christian CD I ever owned. But one of the groups I like now is Burlap to Kashmir. They've gotten back together a couple of times over the years. I think one is a Christian, one is an Orthodox, one is a Jewish guy, and then somebody. So they're really kind of eclectic. There's only one song that I think might be slightly anti-Catholic, but for the most part, 90% of the music is really about kind of searching for the Lord and finding Him, and they definitely have this this kind of, I don't know, there's like little hints of Arabic, there's little hints of kind of Jewish psalmody, kind of klezmer-y kind of music, and then of course it's kind of folky too and acoustic, so that's one of my favorite groups.
Well, I've also encountered some Christian groups that have, like, I have one, for example, Gungor was a group that came to a big youth conference here in Louisiana, and they were very Christian, and they witnessed the liturgy because we do candlelit adoration and mass and
The liturgy of the hours, vespers.
Liturgy of the hours. It's you know, at a seminary, and that
blog is gone now.
Really?
But they blogged right afterwards.
They blogged right after and about like their
And they were like,
experience,
"What
and it was like,
happened here?"
Yeah, and you could tell like they were Godsmacked
They were led
for
to
sure.
Godsmacked.
That's so cool.
They're
They
smacked
were
by
led
the Lord
into worship.
Yeah.
They were led deep into worship.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we could go deeper into worship, but I suppose we should take a moment. The rotating segment today is called Patron Saint Bingo. And so for our patron saint bingo this week is Pope St. Gregory the Great.
Excellent.
Now, we talked a little bit about him, and even though there's a little bit of a dispute as to how responsible he was for what we call Gregorian chant, it still stands to reason that he is known for his reform of the liturgy.
Yeah.
And so the Gregorian reforms were Pope Gregory. So this would have been between 540 and the year 604. So if you think about it, within the first 500 years of the church, already she is in need of reform, because the church in every age is always in need of reform. I'll say it again. The church in every age is always in need of reform.
Always.
And so you have folks like Pope St. Gregory. Now, Gregory was a prefect of Rome as a young man before he was even 30. And so he founded monasteries on his estate. He became a Benedictine monk in his own home there in Rome. He became a priest. He became one of the 7 deacons of the Pope. So in those days, the Pope would assign 7 deacons for the regions of Rome, and they would kind of be in charge of ministering to the poor, etc., in those parts of Rome. He was elected as the papal representative to Constantinople. I mean, all of these things. And then, of course, he was elected as the Pope at the age of 50, a fairly young man. But one of the things that he noted, in addition to being very concerned about the conversion of England, this was in the 500s, you know, he was very concerned about the Mass, very concerned about the liturgy and the things that were falling into disuse, like the Psalms. And so he brought about these great reforms. He also issued pastoral care directives. I mean, we have this in our own dioceses now, but he was talking about the qualities and the duties of who should be a bishop. He was skilled at his preaching. He was called the Great because he was one of the great listeners of the church in his own time, and he was one of the great people who could apply that.
Yeah.
It's not an easy job. And yet to be able to be led by the Holy Spirit saying, this might cause me some knocks to my reputation, but it is for the good of the church. Those are the saints in this generation that we need as well. We need Gregory's the Great to look and give an honest look at our worship, to give an honest look at Catholic life, to give an honest look at Christianity, even in our own country, and to say, what is it about this that is in need of reform? Not what is it about this that is based and debased and debauched and all that. I mean, we can get bogged down in all that. But what about our experience of worship, of prayer, of taking Christ into our home life? What about this needs to be redirected and reoriented towards Christ and his church?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and a lay person can do that. You don't have to be the Pope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That can be a mom and a dad. That can be a teacher. That can be a principal of a school, right? Or a pastor of a parish.
I think the assumption there is never assume that you're always doing it right.
Yeah,
or
true.
like never assume that like I'm always on the right track just because I always have been, or I think that I have been, right? Always be willing to, like, in humility, submit myself back to the church and
Yeah.
say, okay,
Yeah.
is there something I can do better?
Right.
Is there a way that I can be more like Christ? Because that ultimately is our goal here on earth, right? Is to
Yeah.
become, we're made in the image of God. Our task is to be more in the likeness.
Yeah. Not to make things more like ourselves.
Yeah.
Because, but to allow ourselves to be remade more and more into God's image. And there are things that can have that aim, and there are things that just they're like boomerang back towards us.
Yeah.
And that's what we fight in every age. Even in Pope St. Gregory's time, he was fighting against the spirit of the world. Why? Because we must, in every age, battle the flesh, our own inclinations that are not always properly ordered, the world, right? This fallen spirit of the world that seeks only to consume itself and us. And then, of course, the devil himself. We have to fight against the powers of evil and Satan, the prince of darkness, who wants to keep us in the dark.
Yeah.
But as John chapter 3 reminds us, that even though we sometimes prefer the darkness to the light, if we look to Christ and we believe in him, then he is the one who has the potential to save us by bringing us into his light.
Yeah.
And then we reflect his light, and we don't just try to hide in the corner and be
Right.
about our own darkness. That's really what all this is about. And that's why sacred music is so important, is because true sacred music leads us from light to light. It leads us out of ourselves and to the one who is light from light.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully that's been helpful for you as we make our way through this show that we call the Catholic Underground. We're always so grateful for those of you who join us day in and day out, week in and week
back
out.
in again.
There and back again, yeah. The Catholic Underground is made possible by viewers, by listeners, by prayer warriors, and by benefactors like you. You can become an official Undergrounder today, Jeff Blackwell, by doing that very simple thing, by going to
.com/donate.
That's exactly right. And if you happen to have a platform on which you listen to us that has the ability for you to give us a thumbs up or whatever, then please do that and encourage others to subscribe, or I believe follow is the way that you can do it on iTunes podcasts now.
There you go.
Yeah, so leave us a comment.
Yeah.
Let us know how
Say
we're
something
doing.
nice about Kathleen.
That's
Doesn't
right.
get enough of that.
Yeah,
I am a words of
exactly.
affirmation person.
She does receive
There you
those
go.
words well. All right, our panelists have been the wonderful Kathleen Lee.
Thanks.
That's right, the unrepeatable Olivia Galino.
Well, now you're just sucking up.
The Chief Space Cadet Jeff Blackwell.
Always a privilege, Father.
And then Ed Ball, of course, is running the video this week. Jim Hayes is our research assistant with his crew in the lab. And you know me, I'm Father Chris Decker. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter, although I haven't really been this Lent. At Digital Catholic is my handle. You've been listening to the Catholic Underground. We are cutting through the noise so that you can find that still small voice, especially this Lent. We hope to see you next time. See you next time.
from the Catholic Underground.